So we're now surging the paint from the hopper to remove the water from the system before we fully prime the pump and then start to apply the tips in the gun. So I'm taking the safety off the gun. I'm spraying the waste water that's in the pipeline system, allowing the paint in the pump to push the water through. And as you can see, the paint is now coming through, and we need to just make sure that it's pure paint. After pulling the paint through to the wet end of the gun, we apply the safety on the gun to make sure that the trigger can't be pulled. We need to then clean the end of the gun to take off all excess paint that's surged out and soiled the wet end of the gun, and make sure that it's fit for purpose and clean for the tip. As you can see on the tip, we have flats as part of the tip design. They correspond with the flats in the air cap, so we position the tip to sit in its housing. That is then ready to apply into the wet end of the gun. It just pushes over the nylon housing. We position the orientation of the air cap so we can just tighten up and level it as we nip the cap up. And we're looking for compression of the back side of the air cap, that the union nut is applying pressure to seal the gun. So the preferred order of spraying a sash, typically like the one you see hanging in front of you, would be rebate, outside detail, and then the face to finish off. Making sure that the faces have the correct amount of wet film application. I would then flip the window through 180-degree orientation and then do the same on that side, making sure that I've got consistent application over the whole of the window.
And why do we do the faces last?
We do the faces last because the inner and outer application touch the faces. It gives me an indication of how consistent the application have been, and then the outside face would finish that off to make sure that I've got similar amounts of paint on the crossover corner as I have on the flat linear faces. During the process of spraying, we can get a little bit of build-up of paint around the end of the tip. So good practice to take the tip cleaning brass-haired brush and just wet it and just clean the end of the tip lightly, not too much pressure to lower the wear and tear, but just clean the end of the tip just to make sure that it's not blocked. We've just finished the spraying cycle, so we've made the gun safe by applying the safety on the gun, and now we remove the paint from the hopper. There's a number of ways of doing that, but I find an old brush just to push down the paint that's stuck to the hopper, then circulate the paint out of the hopper into the pressure pot, just by turning the pressure up on the pump to deliver enough at a safe pressure. I find that if you keep pushing the waste paint that's stuck to the side of the hopper down, you tend not to siphon air into the system, and the cleaning process is a little bit quicker. When you get to the end, just turn the pump pressure down a little bit just to control the delivery, and when you hear the pump ticking over, that means that you have to introduce a little bit of water into the hopper. I then use the wastewater to clean the excess paint from the side of the hopper. Still polluted water, but now it's water, not paint. I then use the water in the hopper to push out the rest of the paint in the line. And when it starts to fizz like that, that tells you that the water is starting to come through. At that time, you stop purging the paint into the tin and change over to your waste barrel. Using the water in the hopper to purge it through. We then gradually clean the system out. At that point, I apply the safety, then apply the lid on the paint to make that safe. At the point that we have clean water in the hopper, clean water surging out the wet end of the gun, we want to now clean the inline filter on the gun. To do that, we turn the pressure down on the pump, remove the safety on the gun, and just remove the pressure from the gun. Apply the safety on the gun and then start to dismantle the gun. On this type of gun, we have a simple twist grip process, and eventually just mind the excess wastewater dripping to catch that, and then there we have it, the filter, inline filter in the gun. Remove the twist grip sleeve. So we've uncovered the filter, that just twists slightly and pulls out. At this point, I place this filter in some water and I just circulate on this system, or recirculate on this system, water through the pump just to make sure the inline part of the gun and the inner part of the hose is nice and clean. So as you can see, on every pump you can circulate the paint in this way to clean the internals of the pump. I would leave that safely now, making sure it doesn't fall out the water, and take the filter and clean it thoroughly. A nylon brush to just brush the outside, running water or even an old toothbrush is very, very efficient in cleaning terms. With regards to cleaning of the pump, you can see the circulation process while you're cleaning the inline filter on the gun does remove the excess paint film from the inside of the hose. This does matter, as that can build up over a period of time on the lines and create congestion of the paint flow. To remove the waste water from the hopper that we've created by circulation, we put the feed pipe from the gun into the waste and just run that waste water out nice and slowly and gently, just making sure that we add a little bit of clean water as the process, so the hopper doesn't run dry, and we thoroughly clean the pump at this stage. And as you can see from the hopper, the cleanliness of water is high. Now I put the gun back together with the filter in to just finally circulate, and then I'll show you how to clean the tips before you turn the system off. So we put the filter back in the housing as it was removed. We slide the twist grip back over and then encourage the filter to screw back into its housing. This takes a little bit of time. You don't want to cross thread anything, so just take your time, but it should engage. Tighten up, and the final just twist to lock it. So at this stage we've still got paint in the wet end of the gun, so a little bit of tissue just to remove that before we put the tip back in the system to flush the tip out. I've left the tip in the housing, still got some paint in, as you can see on the close-up. That's the paint that we need to remove. If you drop that in water, it wouldn't go off overnight, but it can still set in the tip and cause you spraying problems. So best practice would be to put the tip back in the gun, set the pressure of the gun, and then just spray some water through the tip. Turn the pump pressure off to make it safe. Just be careful because you haven't got the gun safety on at this point, and then just pull some soft air through the gun to flush the gun line apertures in the gun to make sure they're dry and clean. Turn the air off, put the safety on, and that is the gun safe. We've now removed the tip from the gun. The gun is safe with the trigger lock on. We just make it safe for overnight or the period between next spraying. Bearing in mind that this is the air line, moisture and paint can sit in this line if the orientation of the gun is like this. This causes the air control to block up over a period of time. Best practice for me is to pitch the gun in an orientation that the airways are always running to the wet end of the gun. No paint or water will sit in the air control valve. Good practice.